a person can come with what seems like a complex set of symptoms in their life that they can't really perhaps see the roots of. You know, why am I feeling this way? Do I even have a right to feel this way? Because actually my childhood wasn't that bad.
Yeah, good point.
But then when you go into a bit more depth, well, actually how was your childhood? Probably not as easy as they think it should have been, given that everything seemed to be alright. But then how was your parents' childhood? Ah, well, no, that was bad. And my parents did their best to make sure they weren't like their parents. But in trying not to be like their parents, the family pattern gets transferred in a different way, in a more subtle way. And so in following the signposts with the client who's here, we can potentially find ourselves being drawn to traumas which have affected their family for 2-3 generations. You alright?
Yeah.
Funny. Let that one move.
Yeah, maybe, yeah.
I wonder what I got hold of to get back in here.
Yeah. Maybe my listening is a bit deeper than I thought.
We were talking about how by following the signposts of the symptoms, rather than just trying to change the symptoms, they can actually draw you or direct you to the real roots of discord. And the real roots of discord, experience says, you know, it could be a generation, 2 generations ago, they're often very, very simple. And by very simple, I mean they're pretty obvious. If your family was, or yeah, your grandparents, your great-grandparents were around at the time of the Second World War, in Germany or in Poland or wherever they were, and Dad got separated and never came back, or something, and then because you had to, Mum got on with living and got on with raising the children and never had the luxury, the time to actually kind of fall apart a bit and really grieve this terrible thing that's happened, you know, then that unresolved trauma, often to do with you know, the death of a family member, has its ripples that then go into the kids, and then the kids of the kids, and are there, albeit kind of at a deep level, in the client who comes to see me. And when you know kind of how to look and where to look, it's actually not too difficult to open those things which previously have been closed back up again. And it's not actually too difficult to reacquaint family members that have been parted by trauma, to allow them in an energetic, imaginary, spiritual sense to say the goodbyes that they weren't able to do at the time. Simple as that. And when they come together from being held apart and say those goodbyes, the grief that previously has been trapped within the family gets released, and the spirit of the person who died but could never say goodbye can die, and in the therapy room in the here and now it's not unusual for there to be a palpable sense of something lifting. That's very, very meaningful. That changes everything. When, grandmother has said goodbye to her husband, or when grandmother has said goodbye to her first child who got stillborn, or something, then she's not afraid to connect with and love the second child who survived. So she says goodbye to the first one, and then she can actually connect in a way that perhaps she never connected with the second one who'd survived, who was constantly, unconsciously compared to the perfect one that died. And so the quality of the relationship between the grandmother and the daughter improves immeasurably, and then the mother has a model of what a mother is, and then the relationship between that mother and potentially the client who sat in the room can improve immeasurably. And this is all happening in the imagination, if you like, in the therapy room. Then how does that translate to the real world? Well, at a very kind of almost a mechanistic level, the daughter has different expectations of her mum. See more empathy, can see where her mum's coming from at a almost like a bodily level. She understands her mum, and doesn't. If mum does what she normally does, but used to wind the daughter up, when mum does what she normally does now, doesn't wind the daughter up, and so the daughter doesn't feed her reactions back into the dynamic, and so mum doesn't do the thing that she normally does next, and so it's like the chain of the way things are played out when we meet, that gets broken, because the client who sat here in the room doesn't react in the same way. And then there's also the weird stuff that can happen when you resolve things at this kind of familiar level. Lots of times we'll be working back through a family or something, and things will seem to shift in the therapy room, and then suddenly out of nowhere, client's dad telephones them, that he never does, and asks their son advice about something, which he never does. And so there's this kind of weird, magical, non-local change, that could be put down to coincidence or whatever, but it happens on such an unpredictable but fairly regular basis that it's kind of like, oh yeah, that happens. And that's very cool. I do love it when I get the stories like that.
Yeah, absolutely.